Hi, everybody. I'm Sheldon. I'm an alcoholic. It's great to be here. This is a room full of friends, old friends and new friends, and it is always an honor to speak at Alcoholics Anonymous, but to speak in front of an enthusiastic group that loves Alcoholics Anonymous like you guys do is really a beautiful thing. Yeah, man. Give yourselves a round of applause. It is... I've been really moved this weekend. It's been great to spend time with some dear friends. Bob, you mean the world to me, and there have been times in my life that you have saved my life, and I adore you, and see you be the longest sober man in the room. It's beautiful. It really is. And Rich, you're a dear friend, and I am so glad you are here, and you have made this day for me a beautiful thing. You stay. Forget that keep coming back stuff. You just stay, baby. Stay where you belong. Stay with us. Yeah, man. So Jimmy says to me earlier on today, he says, are you going to brush your hair before you speak? He wasn't serious. He's just jealous. That's the whole thing. Yeah. I'd brush my hair if it looked like yours too, Jimmy. I would. So I've been asked to speak about steps 8 and 9, and this is, boy, that 180 turn starts in step 4, doesn't it? It's when we first start to see what our lives have been like. It's when we first begin to make that transition. But that turn really gets completed in steps 8 and 9, and someone was talking about, Ralph was talking about the steps that we balk on, right? And some people balk on step 4, but boy, it's step 9 that we balk on the most, right? Because that's when they want your money. It's all fun and games until they want your money. This old timer said to me, "Don't worry, Sheldon, they don't want your money." Oh, thank God. So no, they want their money back. They said, "You've been managing it poorly for them, Sheldon, and it is time that you retire." I remember when I first had my inventory done and my 8-step list done, and I went to this old-timer, and I told him just regarding the financial amends, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the financial amends tonight, but I remember when it first came to the financial amends, I said to this old guy, I said, "I've done the math. And at my newcomer salary, it's going to take 30 years to pay back the money that I owe." 30 years. And you know what he said to me? He said, "You know what you'll have when you're done, kid?" I said, "What?" He said, 30 years. And if you're new, I want to give you hope, and the hope is that I didn't make a newcomer salary for very long, and I got all of those financial amends paid in 18. So. Steps 8 and 9 are kind of the spiritual trickery steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. In step 8 in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, the thing that it says here is it says that we have a list of all the persons to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. If I'd have known that that's what the inventory was going to be about, I'd have made a different list. I thought I was making a list of people that owed me amends, right? I had hurt just about everybody. If you got close enough to me, if you trusted me, if you let me get near you, I had hurt you. And I didn't do it because I was a bad guy. I didn't do it because I was a criminal. I didn't do it because I was mean. I did it because I had no choice. I did it because what I am is a survivor. And in order for me to get what I got to get, in order for me to do what I got to do, I'm going to take what I got to take. I'm going to use who I've got to use. I'm going to do whatever I got to do. And I don't feel like I'm being a criminal at the time, and I don't feel like I'm being a bad guy at the time. My first sponsor used to say that he lived his life, and I lived my life like him. Like I was driving in a car at 60 miles an hour, and as anything came down the pike, I would just throw it over my shoulder into the back seat. Whether it was a bill, whether it was your love, whether it was your trust, whether it was your money, whatever it was. I would just throw it in the back seat, and I'd keep going on the highway of my alcoholism. I'd just keep hurtling down the road, and when I got sober, it was like I slammed into a brick wall, and all that stuff came flying over the back seat into my lap. And I'm left with a mess. And I'm filled with guilt, and I'm filled with shame. And I don't like who I am, and I'm uncomfortable, and I'm squirmy, and I can't look anybody in the eye, and I feel like garbage. And I start working my way through these steps, and our presenters this weekend have blown my mind, as they always do. I'm blessed. Somebody already said this, that the men in this room and the women in this room that have shared their experience with us this weekend have become dear friends of mine over the years. And some of the talks that I have heard, I tell you, you guys are good, but you're not as good as you were today and yesterday. I mean, they were exceptional talks, weren't they? And I get led through these first 3 steps, and I'd been through the first 3 steps many times. I did what someone referred to this weekend as the AA waltz. I did the 1, 2, 3 drink, 1, 2, 3 drink. And I was rushed up to my inventory, and we went through my inventory. I was less than 30 days sober when I did my first, 4th, and 5th step. And there were men and women in the groups that I was at that were telling me that that was too fast. Slow down, kid, they would say. Slow is real. And some of those people are not with us today. And I will tell you, if you're new, and this is only my opinion, and if your sponsor disagrees with me, please remember that I am wrong, right? They are your sponsor. I am simply the entertainment at the AA function, right? is all I am. I'm just the clown from Las Vegas that happens to be good at stringing words together, right? Your sponsor is your sponsor. But it was explained to me that if you stay sober, you can revisit the work and do it in more depth and do it in more detail lately. I was told that you're a drowning man. You're in the middle of a large body of water and you're drowning. When do you want the life preserver? How long can you tread water for? It was suggested to me to grab the life preserver right away. And I did my first inventory, and I can't really speak to you effectively about my 8th and 9th step experience without touching a little bit on my inventory. You know, it's funny when you write an inventory, if you're new and you're like me, you're terrified because we all think we're terminally unique. We all feel like our inventories are vastly different than everybody else in the room. What we don't tell you is that on your resentment list, we could probably write it for you, right? I mean, if you're like me, it's mom, dad, current spouse, girlfriend or boyfriend, current employer, brothers, sisters, previous spouse, previous employer, previous spouse, previous employer, and then it trickles down to anyone that's had any meaningless contact in your pathetic little life up to this moment. So my mom and dad were on the top of my list. I hated my dad. I hated my dad. My dad left when I was 2 years old, and he ruined my life. I hated my dad, and he ruined my life. I'm a Jewish kid. We were born into a middle-class Jewish neighborhood. When Dad left, we moved into the English equivalent of Section 8 housing. We became a welfare family. I moved into an area that had a lot of anti-Semitism. I grew up getting, I used to say I grew up getting in fights, but I didn't. What I grew up getting into fall on the ground cryings, because that's my fighting technique, right? I am the best at falling on the ground begging for mercy you have ever seen. And I hated my dad, and I hated my mom. My mom screamed and yelled a lot, and I hated these two people. So I write an inventory, and I get to, as was read, I get to swallow some big chunks of truth about my childhood, about my mom and about my dad and about the reality of that situation. And I get to let my mom off the hook a lot. My mom was really young, and she was a single woman in a Jewish community in the 70s. It wasn't cool to be divorced in the 70s in a small religious community. It was not acceptable. And she was kind of an outcast. And in my inventory, I got to look at that. We were a welfare family, and my mom didn't have the money to raise us boys. So she went to the women that she went to high school with, who were affluent women, and she asked them if she could be a domestic in their home. And that must have been terrible and humiliating and difficult for her. My memory is it was embarrassing. I hated her for it. I was embarrassed by the fact that I might be at a friend's house and mom would come in carrying the bucket. Right? Don't tell them you're my mom, for God's sakes. You know, it's terrifying. But I got to get a little bit of a new attitude towards my mom through the inventory. And I would have told you before the inventory that my mom didn't love me. But I got to learn in the inventory some expressions of love that she had. And that first expression was becoming a domestic in the home of her high school friends. And I got to see that was love. One of the other things my mom did that I don't know if this was right or wrong. And so if this isn't your situation, please don't glean any judgment from this. None is meant. It was my mom's expression of love. She did not remarry until my brother and I were adults and moved out of the home. And she was a very beautiful woman with many offers. But she, to protect us, didn't want to bring another man in the home. And that was her expression of love. And I didn't know that until I did my inventory. So I come out of my inventory with a new attitude towards my mom. And I'm willing and I'm prepared to make amends to my mom. And I think about what it must have been like to be her. I had never considered that. This is one of the lessons that they asked me to learn in the inventory. They asked me to consider what it might have been like to be my mom. In order for me to make an accurate and true amends to her, think about what it might have been like to be your mom. And I'd never thought about it. I'd never considered it. And now I'm filled with this admiration for this woman. I stole from her every moment I could. When Bill says that he stole from Lois's slender purse, right, chills go down my spine when I'm first doing the work and I read that, because first you steal a couple of dollars and you get away with it, and then you steal $5 and you don't think she notices, and then it's $10s and $20, and she knows because she gives you that look, but you can't stop and you do it anyway. I disrespected her. I treated her terribly. My mom's 4'9", and my brother and I are not tall, right? I'm 5'8", but I tower over 4'9", right? Gives me an advantage when she's trying to stop me leaving the house. First year I was sober, my mom kept a distance. I lived in Las Vegas and she lived in Chicago. But I was about 8 months sober maybe, and her husband was in the construction business, and we have a big cement show every year in Las Vegas, and they came out to the cement show, and Mom came with him to visit and to check on me. But they were also having a beautiful vacation, and I had dinner with them one night. And I went to meet with my mom, and I tried my best to do my best to make an apology to my mom and to tell her how sorry I was for the things I had said and the things I had done. And you know how moms are, man. I was sober. I had showered. I didn't ask her for any money and hadn't for a while. And she was just delighted that I seemed to be doing so much better than I had done. A couple of years before, I had called her and I had told her I was in detox. and she thought it was a city in California. So she was just delighted that I was doing better. And then I broached the subject with her about the money that I owed her. And I told her, Mom, we both know that I had stolen from you many times over the years. One of the things that had happened, I was born and raised in England, and I moved from England to California when I was 16, and right before I left, I had Mom help me get a motorcycle. Mom never had any money, but she always paid her bills, and she had good credit. So I persuaded her to take out a loan to help me get a motorcycle when I was 16 in England, and she did that. And after about 2 months of owning that motorcycle, I crashed it and I totaled it. And when I moved to California, I didn't think that you still had to pay that bill, right? I mean, I had left the country. Why would I ever consider it again? And of course, Mom had to pay that bill. And we talked about that. And I told her that I wanted to make a payment plan to her for the money that I owed her. And she did what a lot of parents do. She said, you know, son, I'm just glad that you're sober. And I don't want your money. I just want you to live a good and full life. I don't want you to pay that money back. You staying sober is repayment enough for me. And I had been prepared by my sponsor that she might say that. And I have heard very good arguments from the podium that if a parent says that it's okay, it's their money. They get to say that. My sponsor didn't agree with that argument. And he told me that when she said that, I had to say, no, Mom. I appreciate that, but I still need to pay you back. And if you want me to stay sober, you have to allow me to pay you back. She said, you don't owe me the money. I said, what are you talking about? She said, Sheldon, your Aunt May, when she died, left you a bunch of money. And I gave your brother his, and I kept yours because you owed it to me. And I wasn't mad. I was delighted because I felt like I was off the hook. I want to fast forward a bunch of years. I'm going to talk about my dad in a moment, but I want to fast forward a bunch of years, if I may. I'm sober probably about 5 or 6 years. Actually, less than that. I got sober in 1996, July 17th of 1996. In 1998, I got married, and my ex-wife was very close to her mom. So she would call her mom and talk to her mom on a regular basis. They were like almost every day, they were very, very close. And she wanted to have a relationship with her mother-in-law similar to the relationship that she had with her mom. Well, I wasn't happy about that. See, because I'd gotten a better attitude towards my mom. I had learned that when we were kids, she went through some difficult stuff. I had learned that when we were kids, she had struggled. I had learned that when we were kids, she was driven by certain things to behave the way she did. But I will tell you that she behaved the way she did. And I did not like the way she treated me when I was a kid. And even if I had, forgiven is a strong word, but even if I had learned some tolerance about the way she treated me when I was a kid, I knew she was still the same judgmental person. I knew she was still the same person that would make assumptions that she knew things she didn't know. I knew my mom was still the person that would have a comment to say about everything. I knew my mom was still a woman, for my own safety, that I should keep at arm's length. I knew that. Even though I had gleaned some understanding. And I tell you, I'm a good AA member. So I wanted to have that good AA relationship with my mom, so I would call my mom every Sunday. And I would call her every Sunday at about 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock Chicago time, so she knew when the phone rang, it was me, and she didn't have to worry about me anymore. And when she called me, this is how the conversation would go. I would say, "Hi, Mom." She'd say, "Hi, Sheldon." I'd say, "How are you?" She'd say, "Fine." I'd say, "How are you?" She'd say, "Fine." "I'm fine, you're fine, fine, we're fine, fine, everybody's fine, it's fine, fine, okay, fine, goodbye, fine, talk to you next Sunday, Mom, fine." And that was it. Right? I just wanted to be able to check the AA box that I had called my mom. I just wanted to be able to check the box. But I didn't really want to be close to my mom. I didn't really trust my mom. I had a lot of, so my ex is calling my mom behind my back. And I would call my mom on Sunday and I would go, "Hi, Mom, how you doing?" And she would say, "Fine." I'd say, "I'm fine, you're fine, fine, everybody's fine." And she would say, "Well, hey, wait a minute. Let me ask you about that promotion at work." "How do you know about that?" "Oh, well, your wife told me." "Oh, she did?" I go running downstairs. "What are you doing talking to her?" And this was the relationship I had with my mom. My son was born in 2001, and in 2002, my mom retired. Well, actually, she didn't retire. Her husband retired from their job, and they could move anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world they wanted to move. And they decided to move to Las Vegas near me. Now I will tell you that she didn't really want to live near me. But you guys had at least taught me to not do so much damage that she would stay away. She moved to be near her only grandchild. That's why she moved here. But I tell you, I was terrified. I was terrified. And my mom, when she would come to the house, I told you she's 4'9", right? And I live in Las Vegas. Not all year round, but for part of the year, it's relatively warm in Las Vegas. But I tell you, when she came to the door, there'd be a shadow over my entire house, right? When you open the door, the cold wind would... July, I want to turn the heat on, for God's sakes. One day we're sitting in the house. And this happened, I was about 7 or 8 years sober, and what I'm about to tell you happened. I am so grateful that I was sober that amount of time when this happened, because if it had happened when I was newer in sobriety, I would not have been awake for it. But one day we're sitting in the living room, and my mom says she's having car trouble. Now, I'm in the car business. Cars are easy for me. My mom didn't want anything fancy. I could get her a car. I was in a position in my life at that time in my life where I could get her a car, I could finance that car, and I would not notice the payment out of my monthly budget. So I said to her, "Mom, oh gosh, I'm being a big shot. This has nothing to do with the men's. I'm being a big shot." "Oh, Mom, if you need a car, don't worry. Come down to the dealership, pick something out. We'll get your car. Let me take care of it for you." And my mom said, "It's okay, honey. I don't want your charity." And that hurt. And sitting there at that moment, I realized that my mom's opinion of me was the same as my opinion of her. And in a split second, I felt cold, and I felt like a 2-year-old child in that room. And I said to my mom something that I thought was a joke. God must have moved me, put the words in my mouth, because I said these words and I did not mean them. And here's what I said to her. "Mom, that money that I owed you, I never paid you that money back. Aunt May didn't owe you the money, I did. Aunt May paid you that money, I never paid you the money. I'd like to pay you the money back. Let me get you a car as amends. Now, at the time, my stepdad was sober, a couple of years in Alcoholics Anonymous. My mom was active in Al-Anon. She started to protest, and I said to her, Mom, if you don't let me make this amends, ha 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 ha, you might kill me. Ha 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 ha. My stepdad, who is Scottish, now, I mentioned I'm a Jew. You think the Jews are tight. He's a Scot. And he says, it's a free car, Marna. Let him pay for the car, for God's sakes. It's free. So we make arrangements for her to get a car. And we make arrangements for me to make the payments on the car. And I will tell you that God moved me within a few months of starting to make those payments to see the truth in a way that I'm so grateful, because I think that some of us aren't presented with the lesson that I was presented with. Because as I made those payments, my mom appeared to change. As I made those payments, something magical happened. Now, it felt to me like she started to treat me different. It felt to me like she started to respect me differently. And that is possible, and I will never know this, that there is a modicum of truth in that. It is possible that she knew I owed her the money, and as I paid her the money, she thought to herself, well, finally, he's a man and he's taking care of business. That is possible. But I don't believe that's what happened. Maybe a little bit. Here's what I believe happened. My ego, when it knows I owe, my ego, when it knows I owe, will make excuses for it to be okay for me to owe. My ego will justify the debt to make it okay for me to not have to pay the debt. It will create stories. It will write narratives. It will persuade me and convince me. It will give me the weapons that I can provide you with so you'll agree that it's okay for me not to pay. See, if my mom is an opinionated, cold gossip that sticks her nose in where she shouldn't stick her nose in, that never really loved me and was a terrible mother, it's okay to not to pay that person back. But as I pay her back, she changes. She becomes a woman that did her best. She becomes a woman that struggled, that sacrificed, that gave up much of her life to raise me and my brother, that provided the best life that she could for us when we were kids. I get to see my mom for who the woman she is. See, something happens inside of me when I am not even or equal in this world. Something happens inside of me, and maybe you've had this experience. I know a lot of our speakers have talked about this, that noise in your head. Maybe you've got a head like I've got a head. Here's what my head's like when I'm new, right? I got that one voice that we've all got. You know the voice, the one that goes, have a drink, have a drink, have a drink, have a drink. You can have a drink. Come on, why not have a drink? Come on, have a drink. It's been a long time. It's been days, for crying out loud. Come on, have a drink. And you got the other one that says, why are you trying to stay sober? You're never going to stay sober. You're a loser. You know, last time you tried to stay sober, you made us suffer for 30 days, for God's sakes. You're going to make us do that again? You're going to drink anyway, so why not? Have a drink, have a drink, have a drink, have a drink. Loser. But that voice begins to fade. See, active participation in Alcoholics Anonymous, going to your home group, having a sponsor, trying to carry the message, doing all the things that we tell each other to do when we're new, that will start to fade. But the voice that doesn't start to fade is the voice that says you're a piece of crap. You've always been a piece of crap. You're a thief, you're a liar, and you're no good. In fact, that voice gets louder. The voice that tells me I'm worthless, the voice that Peter was talking about in step 6 and 7, that uncomfortable twisting in my gut, that voice can get louder. And I believe that the ego drives that voice. And I believe that before I started to make amends, as much as my spirit wanted a response, it had nothing to say. So it lied quiet and it lied dormant. But as I started to go through this process, and really step 9 is where this begins, right? Because up until step 9, it's valuable and important and necessary work. It's life-saving work. But up until step 9, it's all stuff I do by myself, on my own, with my sponsor, right? It's inventory work, and it's self-reflection, and it's a series of prayers, and it's read this and scribble that. And it's all very, very important stuff. But it's just me and me and me and me. And if selfishness is the root of my problems, at some point we better involve somebody other than self. I'm just saying, right? I mean, you can inventory yourself into the loony bin if you'd like, right? If you don't start to do something else. And it is in a combination of the amends process that I'm going to share with you about today, and then the addition of step 12 that Harold will talk about tomorrow, where my spirit gets to have an answer. Sheldon, you're a piece of crap. You've always been a piece of crap. You're always going to be a piece of crap. You're a liar and you're a thief. And then the spirit says, no, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. You're paying back your mom. You took care of that problem that you had with your old employer. You went and spoke to that girl whose heart you broke. You're taking care of your kids. You're doing things and acting in ways that will allow you to build self-esteem. They told me when I was new, if you want to have self-esteem, because that's what I was so desperately lacking. If you want self-esteem, do esteemable acts. This is how you get self-esteem. And yes, chairing the meeting at your home group is an esteemable act. And yes, giving Johnny Newcomer a ride to the meeting is an esteemable act. But esteemable acts are weighted. Some have greater value than others. And they told me when I first began my inventory process that I had sold my self-respect and my self-esteem and my self-worth and my self-value one nickel and dime at a time. And if I wanted to buy them back, I would buy them back in the amends process. Before my very eyes, my mom changed. Before my very eyes. Today, my mom is still opinionated, and I love her. And she's still always got something to say, and I don't care. I ignore it. Who cares? It's just how mom is, right? I mean, my mom's my mom, for crying out loud. It's just who she is. But she changed from being this cold, towering giant to being a 4'9" grandma that just wants to be part of the family. And I'm blessed to be in a situation and a position today where that 82-year-old woman needs me and depends on me. And I take care of her and I look after her without resentment and without angst. And that is your fault. That is your fault. You know, I'm talking about my mom, and I'm going to talk about my dad in a minute, and I don't mean to diminish the other amends. I don't mean to diminish the other amends, because they're all important. But I tell you, one of the things that I think is super important for us to talk about, because it's a place where many of us, including myself, have struggled, is in those primary relationships. And when I say primary relationship, what I mean is a relationship that doesn't go away. Is it difficult to go to your old employer whom you lied to or stole from? Yes. But after you make amends to him, you're not going to see him next Tuesday. Is it embarrassing to go to the old girlfriend or boyfriend? Of course it is. Is it hard to take care of the old financial man? Of course it is. But if you're new, here's what I will tell you, is if you have 10 of those, or 20 of those, or 30 of those, as the book says, when you've made the first 3 or 4, the rest seem to become easy. They just do. They topple like playing cards. And we almost, and this is bizarre, if you're new, you won't believe this, you almost get excited about making them, right? Because you've made a few and they've gone well and you get excited about making them. It's the amends of those people that don't go away that are so difficult. And I want to talk a little bit about my dad. Did I mention that I hated my dad? I did. If you would have asked me, I would have told you that my dad ruined my life. I was a middle-class Jewish kid in a Jewish neighborhood. I was destined to be an attorney or a doctor, for crying out loud. It was my birthright. My dad split when I was 2 years old. And when he left, we went into Section 8 housing, which is, or the British equivalent. We don't have Section 8 housing, but we became a welfare family, or the British equivalent. We lived in the wrong part of town. I used to get in a lot of fights. I would have to walk I went to a Jewish school from 9 till 13, and I would have to walk through an anti-Semitic neighborhood. That's very overreaching. A neighborhood that had some anti-Semitic people in it. And we wore a uniform that screamed we were going to a Jewish school, and there'd be a lot of bullying, and we'd get chased, or we'd get beaten up, and it was just, and it was my dad's fault, because did I mention, my dad left when I was 2 years old, and he ruined my life. And I do the inventory of my dad. And I learned some new stuff. I did. I learned some new stuff about my dad. I got to have a new perspective a little bit about my dad. My dad married my mom at a time where you married very quickly. They really didn't know each other. He was 21 and she was 18. There was still conscription in England at that time because of the Second World War. And he was only going to go away for 2 years, but he was going to go away for 2 years, and he wasn't going off to war or anything, but it was typical that before they would get married, and then they got married quickly. And I got to see what it might have been like if when he got home from his service, and maybe him and my mom didn't get along, and I got to kind of take a breath and imagine what that might have been like. And I got to see what it might have been like for him to find out that she was pregnant with my older brother. And I got to imagine what it might have been like for the fear of him to realize that he was not going to have any fun and he wasn't enjoying his life and he just wanted, life is short. And then she was pregnant with me, and all of a sudden there are 2 boys at home, and the stress and the strain of that. And I got to imagine what it might have been like to imagine that you were going to have a difficult and painful life. And although I will tell you that I believe the right decision would have been to give up all of the chance of happiness and joy for him for the rest of his life and be miserable to raise me, that would clearly have been the right decision. It's not the one I would have made if I was in his shoes. And I was able to, because I run from everything, right? You don't have to get me very uncomfortable to get me to run. Slight irritability and I'm out the door, right? So I know that, right? And so I get to have this vision of what it might be like to be like my dad in step 4 and 5. But I still don't like the guy. And I still don't want him in my life. And isn't that reasonable? Isn't that fair? Isn't it okay for me to say, well, gosh, I kind of understand, and I'm going to let you off the hook as long as you stay over there. Isn't that reasonable? After all, I don't know if I mentioned this, he ruined my life, right? And so this is a big deal for me, my angst to my dad, I'm probably about, this is embarrassing, but I'm probably about 4 or 5 years sober. And I'm having a conversation with a guy at the AA club. And I've done my inventory. And I've met with my dad, and I've made amends to my dad, right? Real surface amends. Listen, Dad, if I was disrespectful, I'm really sorry. If I made you worry when I was out drinking, I'm really sorry. If I did anything to upset you, I'm sober now, and, I'm going to be the good. So I'd made that amends to him. But I still hated the guy. And I'm sitting in this AA club talking to this guy, and we're having this conversation, and somehow parents come up, and I said this to my dad, to my friend. I said, well, my dad, I'm struggling with my dad because my dad, and this will surprise you, my dad ruined my life. At the time, I was an executive manager at an automobile dealership. And I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. I was married and I had a son. I was a member of my home group in good standing. I was driving fancy cars, taking fancy vacations, living in a fancy house. And I'm telling this guy, my dad ruined my life. And do you know what he said to me? Your life doesn't look very ruined. And when he said it, it was a shock. It was like, maybe I've been exaggerating. In the fourth step, it asks about dishonesty. And in the amends, it asked me about making amends for the exact harm that I did. And the dishonesty about my dad was, see, I got a good life. I had a good life then, I got a good life now. Why do I have a good life now? Well, if I ask you, you're probably going to tell me, right? I have a good life now because I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous in good standing. I have 12 golden steps in my life. I'm a member of a home group with a sponsor. And you know what? You'd be right? That is one of the things that makes my life a good life. But why do I have a good life? Well, I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. I like living in Las Vegas, Nevada. I got sober in Las Vegas, Nevada. The man that saved my life was my sponsor for the first 20 years. Picked me up off the street, dusted me off, wiped me down, and that man lives in Las Vegas, Nevada. I met my wife, my ex-wife now, but I met my wife in Las Vegas, Nevada. My son was born in Las Vegas, Nevada. I love my son. I'd probably have a good son if I didn't live in Las Vegas, Nevada, but he wouldn't be half my wife, and that's his good half, right? I mean, why is my life the way my life is? And if I'm honest with you, why my life is the way my life is, what is the founding thing about my life, what created my life? My dad left when I was 2 years old. And that is the truth, because my dad left us in the north of England. And in the north of England, where it is cold, you see it on TV, you think it's pretty. It is. They show you 2 weeks out of the year. The other 52 weeks of the year, it is cold and gray and hot. What's kind of like here? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But I don't like it, right? I'm a desert rat. I don't want to live in the north of England. We were market workers. We sold garbage, and I don't want that. If my dad would have stayed, the life that I most likely would have had is not attractive to me. My dad didn't ruin my life. My dad was the catalyst for what my life is today. And I treated my dad like he ruined my life. Now I got something to make amends for. And I go to my dad and I make amends and I tell him, Dad, you know, I'm so sorry. I have accused you of things you did not do. I have accused you. All you did was move me to California. All you did was try and love me and take care of me. And all I did was accuse you of things you never did. And I got to begin to have a relationship with my dad. And we had a good few years. But when things get uncomfortable, my dad's a runner. It's just who he is. When I forgave my dad for leaving when I was 2, I wasn't going to, didn't mean I forgave him for next time he left. And my dad left again. And me and my dad had an up and down relationship. It ebbed and it flowed. There were times when me and my dad were incredibly close. And then there were things that he did later in life that when he did them made me want to write him off again. And we had many ups and downs, and my sponsor would always send me back to him to make amends to him again. And it gets exhausting. You ever feel like you're making amends to certain people in your life for things they did? Right? It sometimes felt like that with my dad. I'm making amends to my dad for things my dad did. I go to my sponsor and I say to my sponsor, how come? Maybe you've asked this question, how come? Why? Why do I have to be the one coming out of an inventory, seeing that he did things wrong, and yes, my reaction, or I did things wrong? Why do I have to be the one always making amends? Why am I the one always making amends? And my sponsor says to me, he said this, he said, Sheldon, how many hours a week do you spend in Alcoholics Anonymous? I don't know. Well, how many meetings you going? I don't know, 4 or 5? I said, 4. Yeah, 4. So that's 4 hours a week, 4 hours a week. How about drive time? That's maybe another half hour each way, maybe another, that's 8 hours. You're spending 8 hours a week going to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. How about talking on the phone with the guys at your sponsor? I don't know. I mean, boy, some days it's 5 minutes in the day. Some days it can be half an hour, depending on what's going on. He said maybe it's about 15, 30 minutes a day. Maybe it's 2 or 3 extra hours, 2 or 3 extra. That's 11 hours a week, Sheldon, that you're spending in Alcoholics Anonymous. How about prayer and meditation? I said an hour. He said, you're a liar. It's if we're lucky, it's 10 or 15 minutes. That's another hour or 2 a week. Maybe in Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe you're spending 15 hours a week in the pursuit of spiritual growth. Maybe you're spending 15 hours a week trying to be a better human. Maybe you're spending 15 hours a week trying to learn love, tolerance, patience, pity. Maybe trying to put our code of love and tolerance in your life. You're spending 15 hours a week. Is that right? And of course now I'm like, why? Sounds like an awful lot, doesn't it? Yes, I am. And he says, well, how many hours is your dad spending? None. That's why. Because you want to be the big shot member of Alcoholics Anonymous. You want to get credit for being Mr. Spiritual, Mr. Kind, Mr. Loving, Mr. Captain, not Mr. Captain AA. Well, that's why you have to be the one. And I've gone back to my dad over and over again. And I've made amends to my dad. And now it's 2010-ish. And my dad is moving back to England. And he and I had owed some property together. And he wanted the money. He wanted to sell the property. And maybe it was 2009. It was not a good time to sell property. If you owned property, you did not want to sell the property. And so I told my dad, I'll buy you out of the property. I'll give you the money so you can move back to England. And I did that. And we did it on a handshake because, well, it's Dad. That's what you do with Dad. I didn't think to pull any kind of a title report. I gave my dad the money. My dad split. About a year later, we find out that there are $40,000 in liens my dad has put on the property, and I'm pretty mad. And I go to my sponsor and I tell my sponsor, my dad has stolen $40,000 from me. It's not his fault, spons, it's yours. Because you've drove me back to him time after time after time to make the amends to this man. It's not his fault. We know what he's like. We've inventoried it, for crying out loud. You owe me the $40,000. And we talked about it, and I told him, I said, I can't do it again. I can't do it one more time. I cannot make amends to my dad. I'm going to write my dad of my life. I will never talk to my dad again. He has done this one too many times. I am done. And my sponsor said, okay, I don't mind if you do that. It's a lot of money. It's been a lot of time. But if you're going to do that, I want you to be fully and 100% aware of what you're doing. I want you to do it with your eyes wide open. You can write your dad off and out of your life. Your dad is old. He's probably got about another 5 years left. You will punish him for 5 years. He will be punished, it will hurt him, and then he will die. You, however, will live for about another 25, 30, 40 years, and you will know that your dad was a piece of garbage. You will know that you were the spawn of evil. You will know that your father's blood is in your veins. You will know your dad's no good. You will know, therefore, you must be no good. Every time you hear a song that reminds you of your dad, smell a smell that reminds you of your dad, or see a sight that reminds you of your dad, you will know what a piece of crap your dad is. And you will suffer, and you will be punished, and then you will die. Your son will live another 30 or 40 years, and you are not capable of having that much anger against your father and not transmitting that anger towards your son. Your son will learn everything that you believe and feel about your father. You will teach it to your son. He will know that that is the kind of man his grandfather was, and you will teach him that lesson, and you will cause him to suffer also. But if that's what you'd like to do, Sheldon, you are welcome to do that. One last thing, he said. Do you think you'll ever let your son down? What do you mean? Do you think you will ever disappoint or let your son? Do you think that will ever happen? Well, of course it will happen. Well, what lesson do you want to teach your son? Do you want to teach your son that when the Fedi men are disappointed by their fathers, that they throw them out of their lives and toss them away like trash? Or do you want to teach your son that when the Fedi men are disappointed by their fathers, they do all they can to forgive them and love them? What lesson would you like to teach your son? So now I got to go to England and make amends to my dad because he stole $40,000 from me. I get a call, my dad's sick, he's got to have surgery, it doesn't look good. I get on the plane and I go visit my dad. And I don't know what to say to my dad. I don't know what to say to him. And I ask God, and I think, and I meditate, and I pray, and then I get to see my dad, and I'm sitting with my dad, and I'm holding his hand, and he's sick. And I get inspired. And I tell my dad, Dad, I want you to know, I'm glad you're my father. He goes, what are you talking about? I was a lousy dad. I mean, he knew, right? I mean, if he didn't know, I had told him. You're a rotten father, right? But he's a smart guy, and he knew. He knew that he wasn't a good dad. He goes, I was a rotten dad. I go, Pops, that's not what I mean. I'm glad you're my father because I'm your son, and your blood runs in my veins. And you're funny, Dad. And people tell me I'm funny. And you know, Mom, not so funny. That is a gift of your DNA. And I'm a great salesman, and it's afforded me a good living. I have lived a lifestyle far above the standard that I deserve. And it's because not only do I have your DNA, and your DNA is the DNA of a salesman, but when I was 16 years old, you took me by the hand and you taught me the skills of selling. You trained me and you taught me. And that is a gift of being your son. And I want you to know, Dad, that I am grateful that you are my father. I like who I am, and I am who I am because you're my dad. And I want you to know I love you, and I'm proud to be your son. And my dad put his head down in tears. My dad lifted his head up, and this is what he said. He said, I don't know what comes next. I don't know if I die and the lights go out. I don't know if I meet my maker. I don't know if I get to take another trip around this deal. I don't know what happens next. But if I come back to earth and have to go through this again, I hope I can come back as the kind of man I've watched you grow into in Alcoholics Anonymous. A 2-year-old boy whose dad left him was healed that day. See, what this is about reducing separation, repairing relationships, feeling like I have joined the human race. And it is in these actions and these activities and this work in these amends and this journey that allows that to happen. One of the cruelest things about step 9 is that you'll be amazed before you're halfway done. It is, because most of us stop before we're halfway done. The first sniff of amazement, we put down the list and we carry on, boys, right? Some of us are privileged and honored enough to do this, and one of the side benefits or one of the things that happens because we do this is that people who are sober 5, 10, 20, 25 years that are stuck in their program come and ask us for help. Geez, you're 27 years sober and you seem like you're still so on fire for Alcoholics Anonymous. What is it that I could do so I could have some passion like you have? And you ask them what they're doing. And I will tell you, invariably, it's one of two things. They quit what Harold's going to talk about. They're not sponsoring nobody. Or they have unmade amends. They have half a list done. And they decided, why would I want to pick them scabs? Why would I want to revisit them traumas? Why would I want to heal the wreckage of the past? I was married for a long time. This is where half the room turns against me. Right? It is, but I'm going to tell you anyway, right? I can live on half the love, right? Oh, I'm such a giver. So, I just embarrassed myself, right? Not the first time, Mike, not the first time yet. I was married for 20 years, and maybe this will sound like an excuse. It's not. It's a statement of fact. I was probably married 10 years too long. But that's not an excuse for what happened. What happened is I stepped out on my marriage, and I had an affair. And I ended it very quickly, and I told my wife that I wanted a divorce because I knew it would happen again, and I couldn't live that way. She didn't know about the affair. I just told her I wanted a divorce. The affair was over. I told her I wanted a divorce, and I'm with my son. And he's in. I'm with my son, and he and I have gone down to California for him to accumulate hours for his drive test, and we're on the road, and I'm driving back to Vegas. I don't live in the family home anymore. I'm taking my son back to the house that he grew up in, and my ex calls, and she has some questions about some financial disclosure, and I could lie one more time. I could lie one more time, but I didn't want to lie one more time. So I told her what she was fishing to find out, and she found out about the affair. I told her about the affair. And I got 2 hours in the car with my son before I drop him off in enemy territory. And I get to explain to my son what happened, so when I drop him off at his mom's house, he doesn't find out from her. And I just tell him. I said, son, when you get home, you're going to find out some stuff, and what you're going to find out is all true. What you're going to find out is all true. Your mom is going to say that I had an affair, and that's really what caused the divorce. And it's true, I did that. Your mom is a good woman. She made no mistakes. It's not her fault. It's mine. I cheated on your mom, and I'm sorry. Do you think you'll ever disappoint your son? You know what he said? He was 17 at the time. He said, Dad, you've been a great dad for 17 years. One mistake changes nothing. Now, my son is a wonderful man with a great character. He has his own heart and his own mind. And I'm not trying to say that if I hadn't tried to teach him that the Fedi men forgive their fathers, that he wouldn't have forgiven me anyway. But I am really glad I did not teach him the lesson that Fedi men dispose of their fathers when their fathers make a mistake. My son was 17 and a half years old. When he was 18, he moved out of his mother's and he moved in with me. And he loves his mother, and he sees his mother a couple of times a week. He lived at my house for another year or so. Then he got his own place. And then 8 months ago, he said, Dad, can I move back in with you? And of course I said yes, and he is a good son, and I am proud of him. And I am not proud of the mistakes that I have made, but I will tell you that some people in Alcoholics Anonymous come here hoping to outgrow their humanness. I will never outgrow my humanness. I will make mistakes. I will do things tomorrow that today I swear I would never do. If you'd have asked me 10 minutes before that affair started, I'd have told you it was impossible. But I will remain human, and I will try to remain a member of this fellowship. I will try to protect and defend the primary relationships. I will try to always be willing to make amends when I make a mistake. I will always try to be the one that heals the separation between you and me. I will always try to get as close to you as I possibly can, because I sought my God, and he eluded me. I sought myself. I'm saying that backwards. I sought myself, and I could not see. I sought my God, and he eluded me. And I sought my brother, and there I found all three. Thank you for my life.